Guys, it's James from Team Eternal Hope again, and this time I am bringing you a deck profile, and as you can see it is probably going to be something to do with a legend deck, so it's Kagero. We'll get straight into this and then I might have a little bit of a talk after, we'll see how we go. First of all though, I do like the deck box. One of the things I do like from the new legend deck, there probably will be an opening within the next week. I got one early, I got one yesterday, and it's Friday the release date I'm filming this. And I got too excited and I opened it before filming because I was on the phone to my mate. We'll get straight into the deck build. Alright, most of you thinking, oh, it's James, he's doing a Kagero deck build. It's gonna be an Overlord build. Well, we'll go into the sleeves first. Some nice Kai sleeves. Finally got some. I think as you saw in the trade, the unboxing video, if you watched it, I got these, so that's kind of cool. So my starter is going to be Dragonic Blademaster. Now what he does is forward enough so you pull him out when you ride on top of him, and then when your opponent puts the card from their rearguard circle to the drop zone due to one of the effects of your vanguard, your guys, you may put this unit into soul and retire something else. So basically you kill a guy and then you kill another guy and it builds up onto the retire effects. We'll go straight into the grade 3s. Now this is where it gets quite funny. I run 4 Dragonic Blademaster, so this is a Dragonic Blademaster deck. I probably will put it in the title actually, so I don't know why I went through all the suspense. Never mind. Actually no, I'll put Kagero deck for that work. And I'm talking to myself again. So yeah, basically he is the stride break guy, and basically when you run on top of him you counterblast 1 and you retire something. And its second skill with a GB2 skill, or the first skill should I say, but yeah. During your turn, if the number of rearguards you have is more than your opponent's, he gains 5k and a crit. Likely to have more rearguards than your opponents in this build. It does retire a lot and it does it effectively and consistently from what I've seen. I feel with the new support coming out in BTO 7, never mind the legend deck, this will be the deck to go with over the Overlord. As much as I love Overlords, I was kind of struggling with the deck and I got a bit too bored of it, and the new support didn't seem to sort of change that for me. In fact, it made it put me off even more because I just couldn't find the consistency between the legend, the X, the end, all the new strides. It was just sort of like trying to do too much at once. It might be due to me not being a good enough player, I don't know. Maybe due to the fact that I was trying to do too much with the deck, whereas I probably should have stayed focused on the X, or maybe pushed more for the legend. I don't believe they should be mixed from what I've experienced playtesting. So I've gone with a Blademaster build and hoping the new Blademaster stride is going to be something that actually really pushes Blademaster. Yep, so we'll move on from the deck profile a little bit. So we'll run 4 of those and then run 4 of the legend. I got the signed. I was absolutely buzzing. My mate heard me, I went absolutely mental. So basically, I'll leave the legend in view. I'll put the common one. What he does is, once per turn, you can Generation Break 2 as well, so you have to have already stridden, which is why Blademaster I think comes in quite nicely. You can counterblast 1, choose a grade 3 Flame Dragon from your hand and discard it. Until the end of the turn, this unit gets plus 1,500, plus 1 drive, plus 1 grade. So he becomes a stride. I don't know, I misread that, sorry that was. But yeah, so basically he becomes a stride, which is really cool, and then he also gains the effect once per turn. You may discard 3 cards from your hand, and if you attacked a rearguard with him, you may restand him, and he doesn't lose triple drive, so you get 6 drive checks. Admittedly, you still discard 3, but a really good pressure card, and 6 drive checks is just nuts. His other skill, on ride skill, which most people forget about, is when you ride him, you can counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and look at the top 5 cards of your deck and select a Flame Dragon card, which is about, probably say a majority of this deck. I'm not too sure how much sort of card wise, probably about 40 out of the 50 cards are probably Flame Dragons, if not more, in this deck. And you may add it to hand, so basically you get to add an extra card to your hand, which is rather nice. I mean, you could even search for the grade 3, you need to discard him. Yeah, I was really happy with the getting the signed. I mean, he doesn't look that amazing, but one thing I will say, looking at the normal foil, the foiling, I don't think you probably see this on the video very well, the foiling does look absolutely amazing on the legend deck. I just don't really use too much of it actually in this build, funnily enough. So we're going to grade 2s, and I run 4 Twilight Arrow Dragon. Basically what he does is when he attacks a vanguard and is boosted, you may counterblast 1 and retire a grade 2 or less rearguard. This goes really well with the Blademaster, highly the idea of just trying to focus on retiring as much as possible, wipe their board and then hit you with a few attacks. The main idea is with this deck is more to slow your opponent down. I mean, against Royal Paladin, you retire their entire field, they've got to come up with ideas to replace it. I have been playtesting this against Atmile a little bit, and Atmile, somehow, I don't know how, seems to replace its field quite well and still manages to get all these really cool combos off. But it does struggle, and you do make it really awkward and slow it down a lot with the whole retire plays. We then go for Dragonic Imad. Now he's a little cool tech, I believe. I'll read him out because I'm not too familiar with his skill, funnily enough. GB1, Counterblast 1. When your opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit, so if it's opposite this, the grade 1 or 2, is retired, you may pay the cost. If you do, he becomes an 11k attacker because he gains plus 2k. And at the beginning of the damage step of the battle of this unit attacked, if the number of your opponent's guardians is 1, choose one of the guardians and retire it, and the unit's attacks with cannot be hit are nullified. He's really good if he's massive, which he can kind of get in this deck because of the booster I play. And your opponent has to maybe drop a perfect guard because it forces your opponent to drop something else on top. He's also really good if he's just like guarding for a 5, because then you have to like drop 2 cards instead of the 1, so they're actually wasting guard. He's a cool little tech. I think he's quite useful. I haven't really used him too much, to be fair, mainly done him with Twilight and the next grade 2, but he can be really awkward for your opponent. And next I run another legend deck card for Berserk Lord Dragon. This with a legend is really nice, really good. A bit counterblast heavy, admittedly, so you probably don't actually get the full usage most of the time out of him with the legend. But even when you're on stride or you're just a single attack, just adds to your opponent having to replace their field, because what he does is GB1. When your grade 4 Greater Vanguard attacks, you may counterblast 1 and retire a grade 2 or less rearguard on your opponent's side of the field. This guy just basically adds to the pressure of the whole clear board mentality, because you want to start with Blademaster, you go into a stride, we'll get to that in a bit, and you retire 1, maybe 2, and then you have the starter maybe as well, and then this, when you attack, there's just so much retire that builds up. You can retire 5 units in this deck quite easily, actually. It's quite a scary sort of build when it comes to field board wipe. Sadly, it does kind of struggle to guns like Grand Blue and Pale Moon, but I believe Kagera's overall power bonus will probably get over that. Maybe not so much with Grand Blue, but definitely with Pale Moon. You're kind of like, well, if I'm not retiring, I'm not paying my costs, but when you do have field, I can retire what little you do have, and I can still hit you for quite big numbers with strides, or even with a legend if you do have a front row. And the thing I like about this deck is you're not depending on the legend. If your opponent isn't playing front row, or they have ideas on how to keep the front row off the board and then replace it, the legend is obviously dead, but you can use Blademaster and still have an effective grade 3 that you can do stuff with, even when they're trying to play around the legend. So going into grade 1s, I run 4 Protect Orb, which is the perfect guard and flipper. So basically, when you call him to guard, you may, if you obviously discard a card, if you already have one of him in your drop zone, you may unflip a damage. He can only guard vanguards, so it's a kind of weak against things like the legend or Laurel D Police, which is going to come back so strong with GBTO 7 because the stride just got announced. I'm sure you guys will hear about that soon. But the unflipping this is really needed because the counterblast in this deck is quite over the top. You do use a lot. I mean, you use it for Blademaster, you use it for most of your strides, Berserk Dragon, Twilight Arrow. Basically, all your deck is just counterblasting, Imad, Legend. Most of your deck is on repetitive counterblasting, so using this dude is really helpful. I haven't really come up too short on counterblast at the moment. I believe if a game gets too long though, I do struggle with counterblast, but these are helpful. So I'm tempted to maybe put in like unflip sort of stuff, but we'll see how we go. Next I run 4 Lava Flow Dragon. Basically he's your stride fodder, but because I am running Blademaster, I also get him for another effect. So obviously if you pay the cost for stride, he counts as a grade 3, so you only need to discard him. Also, when you call him to rearguard, I can reveal the grade 3, search my deck for a Blademaster, add it to hand, and discard a card. So that's really cool. Does help if I do need a Blademaster, although mostly I want to be using these for striding, because I want my grade 3s in hand for the legends still, really, most of the time. So yeah, he's kind of a needed card, especially as this is a stride orientated deck. I believe that's what mostly I'm doing now with decks. I am mainly shifting towards stride orientated ones rather than going for like Legion or like other janky stuff that you don't necessarily rely on for. So next I run 3 Dragon Monk Gyokuru. If pronunciation's wrong, so apologies. Basically what he does is Generation Break 1, when you retire something he gains plus 5k. I retire 5 units, I gain 25k, I have a 31k booster or attacker. This thing can get massive. He is your main booster, he can really help you hit numbers. Like I say with Imad, it could be a case of you can't perfect guard or you perfect guard me and you have to drop something else still. So you're wasting a perfect guard and you're losing 3 cards from hand by doing that. Really quite a nice combo, and I'm a 43k attacker, so if you haven't got a perfect guard you're dropping a lot. Obviously that depends on keeping him on board and obviously your opponent having a full field, which they're not always likely to have, but even so, even just with the extra 5, he's 11k on his own. I mean that gives you what, 20k on most of your rear guards, and with Imad it's 22, so he's quite useful. He is my main booster and helps me hit numbers when I need them. And last I run 2 Calamity Tower Waven. Wouldn't be a Kagera deck profile without this guy. Basically what he does is when you call him to rear guard you can Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. Really helpful, and he makes use of the soul that you don't really use much else for. I mean your legend you use it a little bit for, and you do find you get quite a bit of soul because you ride Blademaster and legend. I don't think anything soul charges. Does he do any soul charging actually? Sorry guys. No. So, yeah, and your starter goes back in. So you do have a bit of soul to use. I mean, that's the only reason why I run 2. I won't go over the top with them, because you're only ever going to use probably 1 a game if you do see them. You're probably not going to use both anyway. Just a really cool card, keeps your hand going. It's quite nice to have. Going to triggers, I run 4 of the Blademaster double red crit. When you attack, if you have a Blademaster name, put this unit to soul, your Vanguard gains plus 5k and you draw a card. Kind of nice, kind of cool, makes my trigger lineup a bit shinier, makes the deck a bit shinier. As you'll notice soon, I don't really run much legend deck stuff, so it's not going to be an all shiny deck, all get me on bling. I may build up a legend deck, I don't know yet, but this is going to be probably my main Kagera deck. It might not even be my main deck, depends what comes out in GTO 7. Next I run 4 Red Pulse Draco Kid. A, I prefer the artwork from this to the legend ones, and B, he's a flame dragon, so if worst comes to worst, I reveal 5 triggers, I can add a card if I really need it, which would kind of help with, I don't know, guarding maybe, but it's also cool artwork wise, so I don't mind not running like shiny. I just kind of like the artwork as well. Next we run 4 Gatling Claw Dragon as my only draw trigger. Basically what he does is counterblast 1, put into soul, retire a grade 0. Really good early game. He can roll with Sadi as well. You can retire a grade 0 and then retire any other rear guard, and you get soul charge of 2. That's where you get your soul charge from. So that means you can activate your Calamity Tower early game still, and he can also retire, which helps you sort of combo off as well. I mean, if you get late game and they have a grade 0, put him into soul, counterblast 1, get an extra retire off, and then all your stuff combos off of. This deck is really weak to decks that don't play field. It doesn't get the combos off as well, but I have Stride deck, which is what the whole deck's about, that really help me sort of get over that problem by still hitting for big numbers and the triple drive. So next I run 4 Motherorb Dragon as my heal. Again, Flame Dragon trigger, so I can search out the legend, and artwork's pretty cool. It's Dragon, God of Dragons. Heals are going to play a bit of a bigger part soon with the whole G Guardian thing coming out. Obviously, so you have to discard 1 to G Guardian. So next we're going to strides. So my first stride is a Divine Dragon Knight Mustafa in SP as well. You've got to have at least 1 SP, haven't you? You have the Sign Legend and this in SP, so you've got to go with some SP. Basically what he does is once per turn you can counterblast 1, choose a face down card from your G zone and turn it face up. Choose an opponent's rear guard and retire it, so you can combo it off with Sadi quite nicely. And then choose one of your units for each face up, one of him in your zone, and they get, when it hits a vanguard, unflip damage. You don't really use it for the second effect, although I am considering playing more, especially when we go to 16 G zone, which is happening soon, about a month's time, to try and get that effect off of it, because obviously I do use a lot of counterblast and it would be quite nice to get some unflip potential throughout the deck. He's really nice as your first stride, regardless. He sets up your GB2, he retires things to get your combos off so you don't have to rely on him to hit. And he's quite a nice sort of little tech to have, and he can do quite a lot for your deck. Next is one Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Vortex Desire. I really like this dude. He is kind of a better Mammoth, because when you hit, for every card on your Vanguard circle, which includes your heart, you retire a unit. So instead of retiring one, I can retire two because it's a Blademaster build, but the Blademaster counts as free anyway, kind of. So it does one more than Mammoth, and he kind of looks cool too. So yeah, kind of he does a bit. I don't really use him much because I mainly want to get the guarantee off from Mustafa, rather than the potential to not get the guaranteed retire off, and I'd rather get more effects comboing off and the extra retire. Obviously if I'm playing a low field board deck, it doesn't really matter which I go to him probably, but Vortex Desire probably would be the option to save me on the Counter Blast. Next we have two Flame Emperor Dragon King Root Flare Dragon, a lot of dragons. Basically what he does is, when you stride him, if he's your second stride basically, you can flip a copy of him face up and retire a column. He's really good, especially with Blademaster again, because you get the free kills, sorry, free retire, and if you're not really doing much in the game at the moment, at that time, like say second stride, and they have a bit of field, you probably just want to go him, wipe out the field, get a nice little triple drive off, set you up for the next turn, hopefully put them on 3 or 4 or 5. Probably 4 or 5, probably don't want them on 3. And he just does a bit. It's probably the better option to. Well, I run him over the ace, mainly because I don't run enough overlords to the discards, and it will cause a bit of problem, and it's not an overlord deck. So he is the next best thing. So it's not too bad to have him, and he works really well, Blademaster. Next we have 4 Transcending Divine Dragon Nouvelle Vogue L'Express. Basically what he does is, once per turn, Generation Break 2, Counter Blast 1, Persona Flip, there's a lot of cost. During the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard, your opponent cannot call grade 1 cards to G-Zone. Basically they're saying you can't Perfect Guard, and then if your opponent's on 5 or more, or just 5, they can't use trigger effects, or trigger effects do not activate, sorry. So basically, if they're on 4 or less, you sort of just stop them from perfect guarding, you get that extra sort of push, cause a few problems. He is kind of like a finisher as well in a way, although Legend probably does that a bit better. What I'd probably do is normally go Mustafa or Vortex into this guy on the Blademaster turns, and then go Legend for late game, end game push. That's if your opponent still has rear guards, because it kind of contradicts it. If not, you're pushing with this guy twice. He's really good as well on like 5 damage, because it stops the potential of a 6 damage heal, which is quite good. Yeah, he's just kind of cool, kind of useful, and that's really mostly it for the deck, guys. Let me know what you think. This is going to be the first time I actually play that I have actually had a Blademaster deck. I'm kind of excited for GBT 07 to come out for the support. As most of you know, I am a very Kagera orientated player, and not being really able to play Kagera in a meta at the moment is kind of hurting me a little bit. I mean, like, I could still run the X and try and push, but I just don't feel like I'm very compatible with the deck at the moment. So going with Blademaster and the Legend is kind of a nice little tech, and as I said, I feel that Blademaster does a lot more synergy with the Legend than most other grade 3s, and you don't have to rely on the Legend because you can just use Blademaster. Thanks for watching, guys. There's going to be a couple of deck profiles coming out soon, maybe 1 or 2 box openings or trial deck openings or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. There's going to be a Wise deck profile, probably get done soon, although it's not much different probably from the original one. There will be the Atmar deck coming. It is getting quite close to, well, not quite close, but it's getting there with the SP and the secret rares and maxing it out, because it is going to be my main deck for the time being. And I am really enjoying it. It's really cool, quite powerful. Let me know what you think, guys, and I will see you soon.